Yes, we can hear you.
Fantastic. And second question, do you see the introduction to SPSS PowerPoint title slide?
Yes.
Fantastic. Then we're ready to proceed. Give me just a second here. Okay, good evening. I'm Dr. Reggie Taylor, and I'm from the Office of Research and Doctoral Services. And this evening, I will be facilitating this introduction to SPSS session. Okay, to get started, when I start these sessions, one of the first things that I like to do and talk about in terms of the overview and my objectives is to, number one, is to ease SPSS anxiety, or whatever the topic is that we're discussing, to ease the anxiety around that topic. It is my belief that once the anxiety is lowered, we then are able to put our cognitive energy toward what it is that we're trying to learn. But before we get into SPSS and the concepts, one of the first things that I always start my sessions out with is the scales of measurement, which is a very, very important concept. And in my 30 plus years of being involved with statistics, I would say that understanding the scales of measurement is the foundation of really understanding and advancing in SPSS and statistical analyses. And you'll see when we get into that, just how important understanding the scales of measurement are. Then what we'll do is we'll look at some SPSS file types. I'll talk briefly about those. And why is that? Because there are different file types, and a lot of individuals get confused, and they may be meeting with someone, a faculty, and someone will say, well, send me your SPSS file. And and that individual may send an Excel file, or they may send something that's not an SPSS file type. And so that's very important to understand. Also, if there's anyone attending the session here that is actually taking a course, is anyone here taking one of the research courses, 8210 or something of that nature? You'll see that a lot of times in your applications that you may be required to produce or present at what we call a syntax file. And I'll talk a little bit more about that so that you understand when you see that, what it is that you're looking for and what it is that you need to send. Then we'll just review and conduct some basic SPSS procedures. And what I mean by that review and conduct, the first thing that we're going to do, the first part of this is kind of like an SPSS session, but we're just going to look at some PowerPoint slides and just familiarize ourselves with some screens and some things that we will see once we go into SPSS. In other words, kind of ease you into the process. We'll talk about some basic entry and some views in SPSS. And views is something that's new in version 29 that I found. And I'll talk about that, a new view that you can look at. And a very important concept called the unit of analysis that I'll talk about. I'll give a couple of SPSS tips, and then we'll look at how we import an Excel file if we have an external file that we want to bring into SPSS. And then again, we'll do the live demonstration. So I'll be going backwards and forth from the presentation, switching screens, going into SPSS, backwards and forth, et cetera, to kind of show you that interaction. Okay, scales of measurement. What do we mean by scales of measurement? When we collect data, that data, or those variables, the information from those variables, for example, gender, age, height, weight, depression, etc., all of those variables have a specific scale of measurement. And it's important to understand those scales of measurement because you will see them in SPSS. If you're setting up a data file yourself, you will have to identify and select the scale of measurement for each variable that you will be putting into the data set. So this all makes sense once we get into the slides. So there are 4 basic scales of measurement. And we call them the nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Now, these scales of measurement have a hierarchy. And I'm going to start with nominal. Now, that's not the highest order. And what I'm talking about is that it's a categorical variable. So, for example, if you were looking at gender in a data set, or you were putting gender in the data set, you're not going to put a number, a 8 or 9 or a 10. You will assign a number, but that number that you assign represents a category. So, for example, in SPSS, you might tell it, where there's a male, enter a 0. Where there's a female, enter a 1. So even though we've given them numbers, they represent a category. And what's important about that is that you are limited to a lot of analyses that you can do, a lot of the type of statistical tests that you can do, and it's kind of considered the lowest order of data. Now, that doesn't mean it's bad data, but that's just the way it is. And you're kind of limited to the analyses that you can conduct. We kind of go up in the hierarchy. And what you will see is the ordinal scale of measurement. Now, we all are probably very familiar with this. We've probably filled out surveys before where someone says on a scale of 1 to 5, rank something, and from 1 to 5, etc. You'll hear it called the Likert scale, but that's not a scale of measurement. The scale of the measurement is actually an ordinal. And so it's going in some ranking order. Okay, from lower to higher, higher to lower, etc. But we don't understand equal distances between these. Let me give an example. When we go to the doctor asks us, are you in any pain from 1 to 10? And each of us will give a number, 7, 6, 5, 2, 9, whatever the case may be. But that is a mental representation. It's what we call a construct. And if I'm in the doctor's office and I say I'm at a level 4 pain, and you say you're at a level 8 pain, that doesn't mean that you're in twice as much pain as me. We don't understand equal distances. So it's still a little blurry. The difference between 1 and 2 may not be the same as between 2 and 3, etc. Does everybody understand that concept? It's very, very important to understand that because, again, there are certain statistical tests that you can and you cannot do with ordinal data. So you don't want to run a statistical test, but select the incorrect scale of measurement. Does that make sense to everybody at this point? Understanding the scales of measurement. And we'll see this in SPSS when we get in there, okay? Then we get a little higher in the hierarchy. And we get into what we call an interval scale of measurement. Now, as you can see, we now have those equal intervals, okay? If the temperature is 10 degrees outside, tomorrow is 20 degrees, we know it's a 10-degree difference. We know that 20 degrees is 10 degrees different than 30, from 20 to 30, etc. We understand the equal distances. The key distinction for the interval scale of measurement is that it's no true zero value. Now, what do I mean by that? And there's an example in the slide, weather. Suppose you were measuring weather and you got to temperature that was 0 degrees. Does that mean that there is no existence of temperature? No, it doesn't. So there's no true zero. That just means it is very cold because we can go negative this, negative 10, negative 20. So that's the interval. No true zero value. Now, we then go to the highest order, which we call a ratio. And that's equal intervals, very similar to the interval, but the distinction is that there is a true zero value. Okay? Does everybody see that? You can type in the chat there just to make sure. I don't want to go too fast, but these are some very foundational things that you'll need to understand as we start looking into SPSS. Okay? Because everybody okay with that? You can just type in the chat there to let me know. Okay, fantastic. Okay. So again, these 4 scales of measurement you're going to see later on as we get into SPSS, and you'll understand the relationship between these and what you may be doing in SPSS. Okay? Now, let's talk about SPSS files. You've all probably looked at an SPSS file, a data file with the numbers in there and the scores or whatever the case may be. But there are different types of SPSS files. And so, for example, if you're taking a course and, and the course instruction says, submit a syntax file, I want you to understand what that is. If the course says submit an output file, I want you to understand that, etc. So we're going to go ahead now and take a look at the 3 file types. The main file type where you will probably be doing most of your work, or pretty much all of your work, where you will be inputting data, where you will be selecting these scales of measurement, etc. That will be the data file. So if I ask you to send me your SPSS data file, when you look into your folders, you should be a file extension of .sav, okay? .sav. Now, you print the output, you run some tests or you run something and you get the output. That's called an SPV file. Okay, it has an SPV, excuse me, an SPV file extension. Okay, that would be the SPV file extension. Okay, and these are the viewable results of what you do. So you're going to run, calculate an average of a variable in SPSS. When you click the output, you're going to see the numbers, etc. And that's going to be the SPV file. Now, the final file, which is probably the most least used file by you, but at times you may be asked to provide the syntax file. It's your least used file. But what the syntax file is actually, it's a set of instructions that are written behind the scene every time you press a button in SPSS. It's actually writing the program that it has to execute. For example, now where I used this at a lot was when I was teaching statistics, and I would teach 3 or 4 classes and 10, 15 students in the class. That's a lot of students. And that's a lot of work to look at for an application, 30, 40 people. But I really didn't have to look at the output or the applications because I could quickly look into the syntax file to see if you've done the right thing. Does that make sense? But you won't be worried very much about the syntax, but you need to understand that there are 3 file types. So if we were all in a class and I say, hey, do this application and you send it to me, probably in most cases, I could just look at the syntax file and really see what you did, what you didn't do, and to be able to give you good feedback. Now, I will look at the output file also, but the syntax file is going to let me know exactly where you went wrong or what you need to understand better. Do these 3 file types make sense to everyone? And we're going to start taking a look at them here, and hopefully you'll understand a little bit better, okay? I just don't want to move too fast. Oops, excuse me. Now, let's take a look at these files. This is the first one, the data file, the .sav. You probably are all familiar with this if you worked in SPSS before. This is the .sav file, the data. And as you can see, we have several variables in here. And the variables in here are the columns, okay? Age is a variable. Happiness is a variable. Education is a variable. SPSS anxiety is a variable. And statistics anxiety is a variable. So these are 5 variables in this data set, okay? Now, the next thing are the rows. 1, 2, 3, etc. These are the participants or the cases in the study, okay? So right now, you have a data set with 5 variables, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 10 participants or 10 cases, okay? Very important to understand. So as you can see, ease and anxiety, what we want you to do is just kind of look at this and say, I'm kind of familiar with what I'm looking at now. And just take your time when you open up a data set. Don't rush into it, hitting buttons. Just make sure that you understand that data set, okay? Now, there's a question about an SPS file. No, you don't read download. We'll get into that in just a second, okay? But good question, though. Very good question. Now, that's the data file. Now, when you run and execute something, I believe, Melissa, this may be what you're asking, what's going to happen is that you'll get the output file, which is the SPV file first. Now, this is nothing but output. And so in this case, the individual, I ran the descriptive statistics for the age variable, the anxiety variables, you see? It tells me there were 10 cases, and here are the average scores and the standard deviation. But we're not worried about all of this now, what it means. I just want you to understand that this is the SPV, or the output file. So when you're told to send the output file, you are going to look for a file that has the SPV file extension. Okay? Now, the third one, the syntax file. Looks kind of crazy, doesn't it? In the old days, when I first started using SPSS, back in my days in the Air Force, to run that output that you see here, well, this is the data, and to get this output here, instead of clicking like you have to do now, this is what I had to write. The program, the syntax, okay? So now if you were in my class and you had an assignment to run, say, descriptive statistics for this data using these variables, et cetera, whatever I asked for, I would know what you've done by looking at this file and if it was correct or not, okay? The SPS file. So as you can see, it kind of tells you here, it says, go get this data set. I want to get the frequencies for these variables, the gender, the education. As you can see, it's just simply telling SPSS what to do. And so if you're asked to send that, it's going to be the syntax file. And we'll take a look at how you get that and where it's at and all those types of things. But now, before I go any further, are we okay with understanding there's 3 file types, okay? The data file, the output, and the syntax. Are we okay with that? Okay, fantastic. Now, the next thing, again, because it's an introductory course, we're going to look at how do we enter data, okay, into the data set, an empty data set. And when we get into SPSS, you'll see that you simply, in the SPSS menu, are going to select the file command and brand new data file. Now, for those of you taking courses and you have been given a data set, you won't have to input data. But there may be times where you have to input data, but still just understanding how the data got in there, et cetera, is very, very important. And you hit data. But you see here, you've got 3 types of files here. You can open a data file, you can open a syntax file, or the output file. Remember, the data is the SAV, syntax, output, SPS. I mean, syntax, the SPS, SPV. So as you can see, new files, you can do these 3 types, okay? Now, when you do that, you're going to get a blank data file. Nothing in it. Now, doesn't this kind of look like an Excel sheet? So you're very familiar with, if you're familiar with Excel, you're familiar with SPSS. It's the same concept. You can do data analysis in SPS, in Excel. You put data in columns, you add it up. It's the same thing. So don't get intimidated with this. You already, believe it or not, have a good foundation coming from Microsoft Excel or any other spreadsheet that you may use, okay? But now in the version 29 of SPSS, we have 3 views. Okay. Now, some of you may be using an earlier version, 28 or below, and you only had the data view and the variable view. What I found to be very helpful is this new addition of something called the overview. And we'll take a look at that, to see what that is, okay? Now, again, depending on the version, you may not see the overview, and that's fine. You won't be missing anything. You'll be able to do everything you need to do. It's just that the newer version has some additional features, and the overview is one of those, okay? Now, what do we mean by the overview or the other views? Here's the overview feature. It's new. When you click on this overview icon, when you get into SPSS, right here, it gives you some helpful information about your data. And prior to this, you had to go in and run a lot of, run a lot of this to get this information. So for example, it's telling you that this is the data set called introduction to SPSS.SAV, what we're looking at, a data file here, okay? Now, but in this data file, remember we talked about the scales of measurement, okay? It's telling us that in this data set, 50% of those are scale variables, or what we call the interval and ratio, 16% are ordinal, and 33% is nominal, okay? Now you can change the variable here and get additional information on another variable. But when we get into SPSS, you'll see just how useful this can be to you, okay? Now, but what you probably are used to and have seen in the earlier versions would be the data view again. And we looked at this. But again, I emphasize the variables are in the columns, age, happiness, in the unit of analysis. Remember, I talked about that in the title slide with the overview. And this is important. And I'm going to go into this more of a research concept. A lot of times, what you have to measure your data and collect your data at the same unit of analysis. In other words, this unit of analysis in this data set is the individual. We're getting a person's age. We're getting their happiness score, their education, their anxiety score for stats and SPSS. This is the individual is the unit of analysis. However, you may be analyzing a business or hospitals. Okay. And what happens, is that the data you collect here would be for the hospital. The hospital would be the unit of analysis. And why I bring this up, very important, is that when I'm doing a lot of appointments and meeting with students to go over their research design and methodology, I see this quite often. Okay. And it's great that they meet with me, because what they'll do is they'll say something like, what is the relationship between age, education, and university dropout rates? Now, think of that. University is a whole different level than an individual. You can't get a hospital rate or a university rate or anything from an individual. And I see a lot of individuals do that. They'll say, and the relationship between A, B, C, which are individual unit of analysis, and they're trying to predict some other unit of analysis output. Does everybody understand that? You can't do that. And if you draft a study up and get all the way to the data collection, someone's going to say, you know what, this is incorrect. You can't. I don't even know how you would get that score from an individual. But anyway, does everybody understand what I'm saying here? That unit of analysis is very, very important. It must be aligned. Okay. So if line one is something from a hospital level data, line two needs to be line three, the same unit of analysis for analysis purposes. Does everybody understand? That's a big mistake.
Can you repeat that, Dr. Taylor? You said.
I'll do it one more time. Yes.
Okay.
This is the unit of analysis, meaning that these are the individuals in the study going again in the rows. If your unit of analysis changes to where you're analyzing hospitals, each row is a hospital data, but you can't collect an individual's score, but get hospital level data. Do you see what I'm saying? If a person says I'm 25 years of age, what does that have to do with a hospital's readmission rate? It's not the unit of analysis. You have to have the same unit of analysis when you're analyzing data, okay? Now, here's the variable view. The variable view is where when you set up your data file, or if you'll be given a data file, when you look into it, it's going to tell you about the makeup of the variables. Remember, gender was a variable, age was a variable. These were all the variables. Now they are horizontal here on the rows, okay? But it's telling us something about the data. Remember all important scales of measurement? Here they are. Gender, it's nominal, meaning categorical. Age, it's a scale variable, either interval or ratio. Happiness, it's nominal, meaning categorical. Education level, we went in some ranking order, high school, associate's degree, bachelor degree, in a ranking order. You see ordinal scale of measurement. And then these are true scores, which are the scales. Do you see how the scales of measurement are embedded in SPSS, and you have to have an understanding of the variables, how they are scaled? Is that, everybody understand that?
So Dr. Taylor, so in the variable view, the row, let me get it
It's
right.
the variable. Yes, it's the variable.
The
That's
column,
title,
the
variable
column
view.
is different in the variable rule. It
Yes,
is not.
again, yeah, the easiest way to remember that is just when you click, you're looking at variables. You're not looking at data. Okay, you're looking at variables, but yeah, but they're in the rows here now. Okay.
Okay.
And then this is just the scales of measurement. And we're going to look at values in a second, okay? Because you see 0 for male. Well, behind here, it's giving us those codings. 1 is probably female. If we have a third category, say non-binary, we may score that as a 3. I don't know, but we'll look at that. It'll make a little bit more sense, okay? But these are the different views that you have, okay? Now, the other thing I wanted to do was some tips. Anywhere you're in SPSS, you're going to see these little graphics. Rather than having to go back to a variable view or something, just look at the little graphic. Nominal is by the little 3 dots, meaning categorical. It's in one of these 3 categorical data. Scale is simply that, is a little scale here, a ruler, meaning numerical. And ordinal, as you can see, ranking order, a little bar, another bar is a little higher. That means that that's an ordinal scale. So you can easily look anywhere when you're in SPSS where these little graphics are presented, and it will tell you what the scale of measurement is, at least as it's put in SPSS. Now, remember, it can be put in incorrectly, but at least you understand what it is and know what to change it to. Okay? Yes, Jeremy, and you're right. If you don't understand the noir, the N-O-I-R, and what that stands for, I had a slide in noir in French. When I studied French, noir in French means black. So noir is the nominal, O ordinal, and then the interval was the interval, and then the ratio, N-O-I-R. That's what Jeremiah is saying. You must have attended one of the previous sessions or looked at one of the other slides. The next tip that I'll give you in SPSS is in the data view. When we get into the data view, you're going to see an A and a 1, something called the alphanumeric. And this tells you quickly when you click on that, let's say we coded males as 0, females as 1. But let's just say we had a lot of categories. We don't know 0, 1, 2, what that means. If we click the alpha, it'll spell it out for us. If we go back to the numeric, it'll put the numeric code. And we'll see how that works, okay? Now, as far as importing an Excel file, if you ever have to do that, it's the same thing. File, import data instead of new or open and existing, just import. And more than likely, it's an Excel file. It could be any of these file types, but Excel is the most common. You simply click on Excel. Somewhere on your computer, you're going to know where your Excel file is. You go there, see, locate file on your PC and go to it. You open it, and what's going to happen is your data is going to be laid into SPSS. So this was the Excel file. You see Microsoft Excel. And when you imported it, so that's beautiful if someone's doing secondary data analysis and they get a hold of an Excel file that has the data. You don't have to retype. Just simply import the data into SPSS. Okay? Now, let's get into SPSS now, and let's take a look at some of these things that we had just talked about, okay? But before I go in there, are there any questions about this foundational information before we get into SPSS? Okay, so give me a second here. Now I'm going to end the show, and then I'm going to bring up SPSS. Okay, now, as you can see here, that I've opened up an SPS. Well, I haven't opened it. I've opened up SPSS, and as you can see, as we show on the slides, that we have these options now. Okay, and we have these options of the new data set and or either recent file, something that was open here. Okay, and I'm just going to open this data set here. And it takes a while. Now, let's just take a look. Now, you see when you open it up, all this stuff pops up in front of you, and you're like, what is this? And remember now, just take your time and just look at it, okay? Just look at the file. And remember now, we've got those views, okay? We've got a lot of views. So let's go into the variable view, okay? Give me a second. Down here, you see the variable view. And that's where we are here in the variable view, okay? Now, what we have here are the names of the variables. Here, there's just probably some items from a question here, question 3, question 6. But as you can see, here's the label of the question, okay? Did you have any electronic vapor product use, or how old are you, etc. And this is what the individual was being asked, okay? And as you can see here, here is the scale of measurements right here. See that? Nominal, etc. Most of these appear to be nominal, okay? Now, but what I want to show you about the nominal data, electronic vapor product use, it's nominal. Remember, you see the little circles there? That tells us that. But let's look in the values now, okay? And in the values, that's important to make sure you understand. How is this coded? So what happens here is in this data set, this individual used a data set where they asked them, do you have electronic vapor product use? And the way they coded it was that 1 will equal yes, 2 will equal no. Does everybody see that? So when you see a nominal variable, you should see some values in the column. If not, something's probably gone wrong there. But I could even add a third label if I needed to, if it was in the data set. Again, just by hitting the plus, adding a number 3, and then saying what it would be. Okay, yes, no, maybe, or something like that. That's all they're doing here. And this is how you're categorizing a nominal variable, okay? Now, one of the other tips that I wanted to show you, when you get a data set that has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of variables, and when you go to analyze data into the SPSS mode, I'm just going to do something real quick. Analyze, and don't worry about this here, but I just want to show you something, another tip. Analyze descriptives, and I want to run descriptive statistics on, say, but you see this small space that I have here? And look how many variables are listed. You see that? And you don't want to go in this data set every time, okay, is this the one I want? And is it this one? You see what I'm saying? And is it that one? You don't know. It's very difficult to navigate. One of the things you can do is simply take the variables that you need and just simply, excuse me here, just simply click on them. Like I'm going to take 5, variable 5, and I'm just going to click and move it up. You see what I've done? I take the variables that you need and just move them up using your Windows functions. And as you can see, you can get the 4, 5, 6 variables you need right at the top. And so when you get into any mode, all your variables are right there, okay? That's just another tip to help you out. But as you can see, the measure column, the scale of measurement, if it's nominal or ordinal, it has to have the values in there. So for example, drinking and driving, they were asked in this data set. It's a nominal, so what they say? The responses were, oh, look at that, did not drive, no times, drove 1 time, 2 to 3 times. So you see, now to me, that can be ordinal or categorical. But as you can see, you have to have the labels. So SPSS knows what 1 means, what 2 means, what 3 means, etc. But now let's use that other tip, okay? Remember when we were in let's go to the data view. Okay, give me a second. I have a lot of screens open here. When I go into the data view, remember? Now you see 16 years old. Let's look here in the age one here, highlighted. Now, you see right up here, the alphanumeric button? You see what happens when I clicked it? Just look at the name. Look how it changes. All the text changes to the numbers. Does everybody see that? So it's a quick way to see, okay, well, 15 years, how did I code that? You coded it, or whatever you coded it with. You can see that that's how it's coded in the data set. And that will be for any one of these variables that are nominal. Let's look into lose weight. You see, there's 1, 2, and a 4, whatever those things represent. Does everybody understand that underlying structure there of the data file? Okay, that's what's important, to understand what you're looking at. Okay, when you open up a file and it's not foreign to you and you're not intimidated by it, etc. Is everybody okay with that at this point? Okay, fantastic. So those are the basics of that now. Now let's take a look at the overview, that new view in SPSS version 29. As you can see, it tells you what data set that I have open. Look at that, it tells me 237 variables in this data set. You're not going to use all 237, but suppose the ones that you need are number 1, 28, 30. You see all those, remember, use that function that I showed you and just drag those variables up and get them all together. It's just a lot easier and just saves you some time. But now let's take a look at this. Measurement level. You see I've got 3% of the variables of scale. Most of those are nominal, okay? I can get back to the data by clicking. I can go to the overview again, okay? Now, let's look at here. If I had a lot of missing data in the data set, you see? Instead of having to reduce a report, you see it tells me summary of missing values. I can get the percent or I can get the number, you see? And it changes and gives me some helpful information. 4 variables, 233 missing cases, 56 missing, so it just gives you helpful information, how the data was set up. For example, here, the frequency over here, almost like a little descriptive statistics process here. So again, remember, I'm looking at the vapor use, but I can change this to any variable I want. How old are you? Look at that, click there. And you see how it updates and gives me a little graph? 14 years old, we had 3,400 of them. 15 years old, you see I'm getting some good information here, just through this overview, okay? Now, again, old version data. Yes, data can be used. You can probably have SPSS data and go back as far as versions 1 and 2, if you can ever find those versions. It's just that, of course, there's a lot more capabilities in these things, but the basic tests that mostly anyone would run are in all versions of SPSS. Now, again, as they increase the versions, they put a lot more code into it. It becomes more robust. It probably takes up a lot more space on your computer. But again, any data can be used. Okay, it doesn't matter how old or new the data is. Okay. And you can subset a data set in SPSS. Yes, you can, Francis. But again, this is, the basic introductory to that. But yes, those things can be done. Pretty much anything you think of that you need to do with data, you can do in SPSS if you know how to do it. But yes, you can get a subset of data. One of the quickest ways you can do that, I'll just give you a quick look, is I can go into my data set. Let me change my view here into the data view. And subset. I can go into file and I can just let me see, no, edit options. And I believe I can, where's that screen at? No, that's not it. But one of the easiest ways to file, let me see here. data, right here in the data, you can select cases. And I can go in here and select cases where if the condition is satisfied, see, say, for example, if, and I hit the if and I just say your sex, I put it in here and I say equal. And let's say we take one, male, I don't know what one was, male or female. And now if I do that, you see Q for C equals 1. And now what happens is that you see all this here that's been kind of X'd out over here, the 2, the 3, is Xing that out. And the subset that will be used now for any analysis will only be those where I have created that subset of data. You see that filter there? That's what I created when I filtered just for 0 not selected. I selected the 1, okay? So there's a host of ways to do many things in SPSS, but yes, you can do that, okay? Now, give me just a second here. So the other thing that I wanted to show you was that when you open up a data set, a lot of times it's going to be defaulted in this measure column is going to be all the way over here to the right somewhere. But what I like to do is to bring my measure column right next to my variables. So again, just as I was able to take rows here, like 6, and move it up to now row 1, I can also take my columns, the measure column, and I can put it right over here next to the name of the variable. You see that you can move this stuff around to be helpful. A lot of times, depending on how big or how small your screen is, you would have to scroll all the way over to see what your measure is, etc. So here, I just moved it. And you can move this stuff around to where you need it at and where you like for it to be, okay? So this is just really getting comfortable and understanding the data set, understanding what you're looking at in SPSS. And it shouldn't be that intimidating. Right now, for your cases, I wouldn't worry about width, decimal places, missing columns, and all that stuff. I wouldn't worry about that because, again, right now, this is an introduction course, and we'll be having some other courses later on, a little intermediate and a more, but I'll talk about that a little later, okay? And yes, the recording is will be available, okay? Now, let's go back to the data view. And again, remember, these are the variables in the columns. Alphanumeric, I can get the text of how the response was. So whatever question 34 was, this individual answered yes. Okay, you see, they were 16 years old. She was female, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the information, again, for that individual unit of analysis. The person, or the hospital, or the school, or the country, or the city, but the data needs to be collected at that same, so city population, city this, city that, it has to be something that can be tied back to the same unit of analysis, okay? Give me just a second. So, are there any other, what is the PV or CV or DV after done score? That's just the variable name. This is just a mock data set here, okay? This is just a mock data set. And this is probably some questions that were in the data set. Question number 4. And now here's CV. I was playing with this data set, and I'll tell you what that is, though. But don't worry. This is nothing that you need to understand. But what I did here, I am working with some data, and this question 4 is going to be a control variable, okay? So to make me understand my data better, I just put question 4, that's my control variable. Question 5 is also a control variable. The question number 34 was, did they smoke, vape, cigarettes or not? Is my dependent variable, okay? And anytime you see the PV, I put my predictive variable. That's all I'm doing. When you go into a data set and you're creating your data set, let's just do that. File, okay? New data. It's blank. You're going to call that variable what you want to call it, okay? Age. You don't have to say it's a predictor. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But you see, I'm just typing the variable in there now, okay? No, excuse me, that's not the variable. Let me get the variable view. I'm sorry. age. You see, you're going to type that in, okay? Gender. This is basic data entry, your variables. Weight. Now, remember, we have to assign those. I'm going to take my measure column and move it over. You see, I'm moving it over now, right next to my data. Age is nominal, some saying categorical. So I would have to assign categories to that, but it's not going to be categorical. So I'm going to say age is just going to be a new a scale variable. Okay. Meaning now that I simply can go back into my data view and type in the individual's age. First individual is 23. Excuse me. 23. You just type in. The second,
Dr. Taylor,
yes.
how will we know which measurement to use?
Well, you will define that. When you're conducting research, you're going to tell me, I'm going to use age as a variable. I'm going to use age as a scale or numerical variable. Now, you could also say in your research that age, you're going to do it as a nominal variable, meaning that they're going to be either under 25 or over 25, you see? So what I would do here is I would say age, I'm going to say it's going to be nominal, excuse me, but now I have to put my values. And I'm going to say one, if I say 1, you're going to be under or 25 and under. Okay, you see? Now I'm going to say add, I'm at 2 over 25. You are going to operationalize your variables as far as research goes. You're going to tell the reader how you are putting this together. You see, now I've got age. Now, if I go back to the data view, I'm going to either put in a 1, you see how it changes, or a 2. That's what you're going to determine. If you have a data set, it's already in there for you. See, and I'm just putting in, just typing in what I want it to be. Gender, weight. So again, remember, you define the variables. If you're conducting research in your dissertation, you're going to tell the reader, age is a nominal variable. I'm going to have 2 categories, under 25 or 25 and over, whatever the case may be. Gender is going to be a nominal variable. Okay, you're going to say, I'm going to have 3 categories. 0, I'm going to make a man. Okay. 1, we'll call female. And then 2, non-binary. Okay, you will define that. Now, once you go into the gender and go to the data view, you see you set it up now how you want it to be. Now, you go in and put the data in based on You see that? That's the process there. So when you look at a data set, that's what you're looking at. And that's why it's important. Understand the variable view. And if it's a nominal variable, the first thing I would do would go over and see what are the values for my, in other words, how many categories and what are they? I got 2 categories. I could have 10 categories to age. They just all have to be listed. Does that make sense? Yes, no, I hope so. Okay. Okay, fantastic. And again, the data view is where you will enter the data. So if anyone's taking a course, you're going to have a data set with all of this already in here. Now, as you proceed through the course, you're going to be saying, run this test, run that test. You will learn what variables, scales of measurement you can use for each test. That's why this is important to understand the scales of measurement concept. Okay? So now, having said that, the next thing that I wanted to do was to show you give me just a second. To show you a set of resources. You're asking for recordings and things of that nature. This is the Office of Research and Doctoral Services, okay? Now, I'm going to put a link into the classroom, but you all should eventually will know where this is, especially when you get to writing your dissertation. Plus, there's also a lot of helpful resources here for your coursework. But the link that I'm going to take you to is right here. Okay, and this is the last thing that I wanted to show you. Now, here's where the quantitative SPSS and statistics tutoring support. In my office, we provide tutoring for individuals that are in their dissertation process. Okay, not classwork, but I'll show you where that tutoring is done. Okay, but you can schedule an appointment with one of our methodologists. But as you can see here, this is where all the seminars are listed. So the upcoming seminar, this is what you registered for tonight here, okay? You registered for the introduction to SPSS and scales of measurement. Now, if you're interested, next week, the visual display of data, and I believe that's what's going on in the 8210 course, the quantitative course. Next Wednesday. The following Monday, descriptive statistics. You registered just like you did for this one. And then that Tuesday, right after that, so we have 4 sessions here coming up within the next 3 weeks that'll help you in your quantitative journey, okay? So I'm going to take this link right now, copy, and what I want you to do is to go look into the chat now, and this is going to go, where's my chat? In the bottom of the chat. Somebody says I need them all. Okay, you have them all, okay? Now, the other thing that I wanted to show you is that sometime tomorrow, if all goes well, this upcoming seminar will be removed and it will be placed down here in the on-demand quantitative seminar recordings. So that should be the top one. And as you can see, all of these are the topics that I've done so far. I'll be doing a lot of these again. A lot of these topics, many of the topics and tests that you'll be running in courses, in your dissertation work, if you're going to do a quantitative study, etc. Now, but if you scroll down this page a little further, some information on SPSS, but here is the Academic Skills Center who can help you, and you can get tutoring for your coursework. The Academic Skills Center for coursework, but the Office of Research and Doctoral Services for those that are in their dissertation phase, okay? So as you can see, that link's there. When you click schedule an appointment, what you'll see is the names mentioned. There's Dr. Taylor. You see I have a few appointments there. If you were in your stage, you would click on one of these and continue and fill in the blanks, okay, for the appointment, okay? So other than that, that's all that I have. We're about at the top of the hour, and I don't want to go too much more than an hour because we can't absorb that much. But again, one of the things I always do, if you've attended these before, is my question I ask now is, have we eased a little bit of the anxiety? Not asking you, do you know SPSS? Do you think you can do it? But just looking at it and just seeing it and us talking and asking questions, have we eased the anxiety? And do you feel a little bit more comfortable? You think you will the next time you open SPSS up and kind of understand how it's structured, what you're looking at? Uh-oh, Jeremiah, you're going to be dangerous. All right. Yes, just looking at it, Ramel. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Just look at it for a while. I remember when I started tutoring, on the side, I would just get on it with a student for 5 minutes. I would say, just look at the screen, look at these buttons, just look at it. And it just does a world of wonder. Well, Nima, we definitely, you're very welcome. We definitely care about your anxiety and your progress, okay? Yes, exactly. You need, and that's what I'm saying. It's an introduction. This is even more of a statistics session than SPSS because, you need to know this before you take an SPSS course. You open up, someone says, run this. And you're like, well, run what? What is it? Send a syntax file. What is a syntax file? That's the other thing. I want to show you the syntax file. My bad. Give me a second here. Okay, SPSS. Now, What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into say analyze. Don't worry about what I'm doing, the descriptive statistics, descriptives. And you see, I'm going to put the age over here. No, if that's categorical, I need to do something else. Analyze descriptives, frequencies. Okay. Now, age. Now, all I'm asking you for is now to give me the count for age. How many were in this age group, that age group? But now, see this paste button right here? Paste, right in the middle. Paste. When I do that, it's copied and pasted. Remember when we saw that slide, that syntax? Does everybody see that? When you put your information in, hit the paste button. It creates the syntax file. Now, your assignment is to send me the syntax file. Or the other thing the syntax file does is this. Suppose you had a lot of clicking to do. Let me show you, like, for example, you see I'm doing a lot of clicking. Now, the other stuff I don't need, but continue, paste. You see what it did here? It added more code to me that I told it to do. Now, I could simply just go up here to this little green arrow. Now, suppose you ran a procedure that had 80, 90, 100 lines. You're clicking this, clicking that, and you found out, you know what? I need to take a piece of that data out. But do you want to go back in and go through all that clicking again? No. The syntax file is saved. You just simply open the syntax file, hit run, right here, and you see what happens? It created the output. Because there are no valid cases here. But as you can see, that's the syntax file. I mean, that's the output file created from the syntax. Now, I would just go File, and just save your syntax file somewhere on your computer. Okay? Just save it. And then when you're told to send that syntax, you just send it. But again, watch what happens. We got data set, we got descriptives. Now watch again, I go analyze. I'm gonna go, I'll go descriptives again. I'll just hit frequencies again. I'll put weight, and I'll put gender. Now watch what happens when I hit paste. You see how the code was created again? That's syntax. Okay? So does everybody understand that syntax a little bit better now and understand what it is? Remember, it's with that paste command. And that's syntax. So you'll know how to produce the syntax now. And that's the, remember this .SPSS file extension. So we think we're comfortable now with the 3 file types and how to produce one. Remember, again, we may forget, but again, any procedure that you run, let me go, transform, computer variable, anything that I do, age, I'm just gonna say, let me see. Now, I'm not doing anything that makes sense, but I just want to show you that as I put it in here.
So syntax is just a matter of paste?
Yes, when you put in your code, whatever you're going to be doing, whatever procedure, I don't care what it is, you're going to have a paste button. When you paste it, okay, now I can't do it because I'm not doing anything correctly, but you see I didn't put age plus, let me say weight. I just wanted to add those two up. I hit paste. Okay. You see what it did? Age plus weight. It knows to compute that for me. So it's just the behind the screens. What I had to do back in my days was this, execute. You see, I had to know the commands, if you understand what I'm saying. So it's really just the program code. You see the command comes up, execute. I then type more code. But what SPSS does is that what SPSS does is that it creates the code for you. And then you save it. Again, it's the paste command. Everybody good with that? Like DOS commands, exactly. That's exactly what you're doing, writing a DOS script or whatever program you're in. Yes, that's what it is. But you're not worried about that. You don't have to write scripts. You just need to know that when you run a procedure that you're told to run, and then it says, submit me the syntax file. When you run that procedure, and you're going to be later on in your course running regression tests and running this and that, whatever you do, once you get it in there, and right before you have to run the procedure, you just hit, again, you see the paste button. Okay? And it creates the syntax for you. You see that? And then if I wanted to run it all, I could just hit run, and it would, whatever this code has been told to do, it's going to create the output for that. Okay? Okay, Victoria, and hopefully this will help kind of get you, through the course and, bit by bit. But again, I'll be doing these weekly. I'm kind of trying to align them with a lot of course content. Also, there'll be some very special topics because I do this also for students that are doing their dissertations. And so again, go to the website that I showed you, and that's where all the upcoming training will be found and any training that exists. Okay? So for example, you will be conducting binary logistics regression as one of your tests if you are taking a research course. I'll be doing another video closer to that time, but if you can't attend or for some reason I can't get it recorded, you simply click on the binary logistics regression link here, and let's see what happens. Here you're going to be taken right to the recording for the binary logistics regression. Binary logistics regression, and you will follow the steps. So as you can see, all of the information, how we run the test. So this is what I'll be doing and hopefully accompanying you throughout your quantitative journey here, hopefully, okay? So we all good with that, everyone? Everyone's feeling a little bit better about SPSS, okay? And remember, I think in your course, you have to open up that Afrobarometer data set, just different longitudinal data sets. And now when you open them up, just take a look at them first before you do anything. Just look at them and say, okay, these are the rows, which individuals, these are the variables, and I now understand that measure column, and I can see, what the scales of measurement are. If it's a categorical variable, I know, how to click here in my variable view, and then to see what are the categories, variable view, and I can click here and see in the little 3 ellipses and see how they categorize it. You see 12 years or older, younger, 13, etc. And this is just kind of how so what I would suggest you do, just go into those data sets and don't do anything yet. Just click on some of them and see, okay, this is categorical. Let me see how many categories there are. Oh, okay, here's 4 categories. Lose weight, gain weight, stay the same weight, not try to do anything, etc. Just understand the data set. And if it's done well, you see how like you asked the question up there, what does Q mean, Q or PV? That doesn't help you because see, in the data set, you can't really, when you're collecting data, you don't put these long names, but where you can put the narrative so that you understand is in the label. Okay, so what I could have done here was Q4, instead of putting the Q4 perhaps to confuse anyone, I mean, the CV, I could just say, are you Hispanic, Latino? And I could have said control variable. You see? Now I'm helping myself. I understand what this variable is going to use. I'm going to control for it or something. But this is just labels to help you understand when you get output what Q4 was really asking the individual. Does that make sense? Okay, so other than that, give me a second here. That is all that I have. We ease our anxiety, hopefully. We understand the scales of measurement. We know there's 3 file types. And when we are asked to send that syntax now, it's no longer a foreign term to us. We know that is the file where my code was created, and my faculty wants to see that code. And I hit the paste button for my command. Basic entry, we know the unit of analysis is important, collecting the data at the same unit. We saw those tips, the alphanumeric button and the little icons. We can import file. We did a live demonstration. And hopefully we can end here tonight. And again, the independent dependent variables is something that you'll get in your coursework there. Because again, I can't really get into that now. It's 8:06, I'm at overtime. But again, this is just for the introduction to SPSS, okay? And anyway, I hope that this has been helpful to everyone. Remember, the presentation is going to be at that website. I'm not going to be sending presentations out. They're going to be at that link, and I'm going to put that link in again, okay? Because sometimes individuals come in later if they got kicked out when something was put in there, it doesn't show up. So I'm going to put it in there one more time. Okay, so remember, this is where the recording will be, and all recordings. Okay, right here at this page again, these are the recordings. This one by tomorrow should be up here on the top if everything goes well. So I'm going to copy that again, go to the chat. So please check your chat once again and get that link for the Office of Research and Doctoral Services resources. Okay. Other than that, that's all I have. I hope to see some of you or most of you next, let me see where we are here. Next Wednesday, same time, where we look at the visual displays of data and learn how to produce those graphs and things that we have to do in our coursework and in our dissertations.
Is that where we register right there for it?
Yes, registration required. You'll click here and it'll take you right here to this registration link, you see?
Okay,
And you'll just type in your information here and you'll get that email like you get. Just let you know that that's where the it is. But again, I strongly encourage you though to put your Walden email address, okay? In case I need to reach out to individuals or something of that nature. And then again, you put in your information here, you hit register, and you'll have your registration information just as you received for this one, okay?
thank you.
You're very welcome. So hopefully this has been helpful and we've eased that anxiety and we're off and running and ready to get into SPSS and tackle it. And hopefully I can accompany you most of the weeks throughout this course. I can't guarantee it, but I'm going to try to do my best. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Okay, you're very welcome. And I'm going to leave the class open a bit if anyone, let me put the presentation in the classroom too, okay? I'll go ahead and do that. Wherever it is, let me see. Just hold on a second there and let me add that file.
So it looks like you're a New York Giants fan by the
Die hard, yeah. You say anything bad, we're not doing these again.
Well, I'm from Pittsburgh, so we're Steelers Nation here.
Okay,
so.
Okay, great.
So I can understand.
Give me just a second here. Let me, where's this file at? Open recent, there we are.
But Dr. Taylor, are you in New York?
No, I'm actually in Florida.
Okay.
I'm in St. Augustine, Florida.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so let me save this here to the desktop and then I'm going to go ahead and put it. Okay, save. And now, save.
You always make it seem so kind of easy and explain it very well, but then when it comes time when I'm doing it by myself, I feel like it's still in my handheld.
Well, the thing is that you have the videos and the recordings, you can always go back to them and step by step look at stuff.
Yep.
That's the process, the step-by-step process. And that's what we're going to be doing as we talk about the concept of a t-test or a chi-square. It's going to be the same format. You're going to understand what this test is, and then we're going to understand how we do it in SPSS. But then more important, we're then going to understand how to write it up. Just trust me, you will know everything you need to know if you attend these sessions. Okay?
Yeah. So I do have
Okay.
Can I ask another question?
Very quick. Yes, I have to go.
Yeah. So I'm in the process of writing my dissertation. So can I make an appointment to just review my methodology and
Are you
just
writing
make
a,
sure
you're writing a proposal is what you're saying?
Yeah, my proposal, sorry, yes.
You have you have a chair.
Yes, oh yeah, I'm in the throes of it now.
Yes, you will make a research design alignment appointment, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. All righty, so that presentation is in the chat, and that's all that I have. So I have to go eat dinner now too. And what I'm going to do is stop sharing. I'll leave the classroom open if anyone needs to get the presentation or any of the links out there. Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.